All right, ladies. So let's learn about this week on Thursday is Tisha Beav. So there's a story, a real story that happened in 1967. You know, we recovered the hotel after the war, and two soldiers are crying by the hotel. So the religious soldier is crying and crying and crying, and he's looking at this soldier secular, and he's asking him like, why are you crying? Like, I know I am crying. So the secular soldier looked at him and said, I'm crying because I don't even know why should I cry.
Wow.
He felt there was something happening, but he didn't really know, like, what is this about? Thank God we have this hood to that we're more connected and that we're able to learn Torah. But it says we need to learn about things in order to yearn about it. Like, you know, if you go to a museum and you really study about the painting and the Picasso and how was it and what happened in that era, and you learn about the colors, then you have a much bigger appreciation for the painting. If you don't know much about it, you kind of go through and you're like, oh, I don't know, nice, pretty, I don't like it, and you walk by. The more we learn about it, the more we yearn for it. So the more we learn about the Beit HaMikdash, why do we need it? Like, why do we need a temple anyway? Like, what's the big deal with it? Like, why is it so important? The more we learn about the alachot, the way that it was built, the more it becomes a reality in our eyes, and the more we can make it happen. So we know that the two Beit HaMikdashim were destroyed. The first one was destroyed, and we were exiled to Babylon. And the first Beit HaMikdash was destroyed because of the three cardinal sins: adultery, idolatry, and murder. And then the second Beit HaMikdash was destroyed in the year 70 by the Romans, and that was because of sinat chinam, which is baseless hatred. And we'll go a little more into what does that mean. So since the year 70, it's been 2,000 years, we're yearning for this temple, for this Beit HaMikdash. And the truth is that there are 613 mitzvot, and nowadays we can't even do half of them. So many of the mitzvot are connected to the temple. The korbanot, the kohanim, shalosh regalim, there are so many. So it's a real big deal. Another thing is that I feel like in these days of COVID, we find ourselves in a more solemn state either way, like you were saying, Yvette, in a more reflective state. Like, it's easier in a way to connect to something is missing in our lives when everything is going and we're running and
We're running. We have no time to think.
no time to think, and we're on our schedules, and we're like super, like, we can mistake that we're so self-sufficient that we're okay, we don't really need much, God forbid. We can forget, right, that Hashem is running the world. So we can really remember in these days that we're yearning for the Beit HaMikdash, that we're not complete without it. We're really not complete until Mashiach comes. There was a joke about, it said that, you know, in the story of Yom Kippur, when when Yonah was swallowed by the whale, you know, what did Yonah do? He started crying to Hashem, and he started begging and supplications to Hashem. What do we do nowadays when we're swallowed by a whale? We ask for the Wi-Fi password, right? Like, wherever we're like, what's a Wi-Fi password? We're like, whatever, I'm stuck here. Like, we forget. We get too comfortable. We're trapped in a well, and like, we just want comfort. We're a generation of comfort. So this is pushing us to get out of our comfort zone and really yearn, why do we need this temple? Why is it so important, this temple? So even though the Tisha B'Av is a day of sadness, of course, you know, we fast, we don't bathe, and we try to minimize enjoyments. Even children, they're not fasting, but they shouldn't make it, like, they shouldn't have candies and things like that. Just coming. At the same time, there's a tradition that it says on Tisha B'Av, Mashiach was born,
Right.
which is fascinating. I love the concept that Hashem gives the medicine before the sickness. The same day where the destruction is the same root where Mashiach, where the redemption is going to come. You know, it's beautiful and it's very deep. It says that in this world, the lowest things, hi Evelyn, that in this world, the lowest things come from the highest place. Like for example, Esaf, he had a very high soul, a very high neshama. But in this world, he came down and he turned into a Rasha because he had such a big potential to transform humanity. Or, you know, if you have like a wall, like the bricks on the top of the wall, if it falls, they fall the farthest, right? Because they're the highest, they fall the farthest. So they can go the lowest. So these days of sadness of Tisha B'Av, they really have the potential and they will be transformed into days of joy. You know, because that is the whole purpose. Hashem didn't bring us just to suffer for the sake of suffering. Let me just mute a little bit. Yeah. So, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So, Luis is here. So there's a story. I told you that the second Beit HaMikdash was destroyed because of a sinat chinam, baseless hatred. So there's a famous story in the Talmud and the Talmud Bavli about Kamsa and Bar Kamsa. So let's just review the story because we forget every year. Hi, Louise. Welcome. Glad you could join. So we're telling the story of Tisha B'Av. So there's a midrash, a very famous midrash about these two guests. So there was a rich man, and this rich man wanted to host a party. So he sent his servants to send an invitation for Kamsa. So the servant made a mistake, and he gave the invitation to Bar Kamsa. So lo and behold, Bar Kamsa comes to the party, and the host looks at him and says, "What are you doing here? I didn't invite you." And Bar Kamsa said, "I got an invitation." The host says, "Well, it must have been a mistake, and you need to get out of here." So Bar Kamsa says, "Please, don't embarrass me. Like I'll pay for my meal. Like just keep it quiet." So the host says, he was a rich man, he was big in the community. He says, "No way, absolutely no way. You have to get out of here." So Bar Kamsa says, "I'll pay for half of this party." Nope. Bar Kamsa's like red. He's like all flustered, and he says, "You know what? I'm gonna pay for the entire party. Just let it go. I know we're enemies, but just let it go." The host said no. He picked him up. He threw them out of the party. He embarrassed him in front of everyone. The rabbis were there. The high people in the community were there. And Bar Kamsa left, and he was so upset. And he said, the rabbis didn't say anything, and they allowed this to happen. I'm going to take revenge. So what did Bar Kamsa do? Bar Kamsa went to the Caesar, and he said, "The Jews are planning a rebellion against you." And the Caesar said, everything looked fine, so there was no basis for it. So he said, "Not true. They're under my command. They listen to me." So Bar Kamsa said, "Really? Send them a korban, send them an animal to sacrifice in the temple, and they're not going to sacrifice it." He said, "What? Of course they will. I am the Caesar. They will." So he gave an animal to Bar Kamsa to take to Jerusalem in order to be sacrificed. What did Bar Kamsa do in his hatred? He put a blemish on the animal. On the way, he made a little blemish in the eye with a knife. He made like a little cut, a very small cut in the animal. That by the Romans, that's considered kosher, so to speak. They're able to offer an animal like that. But a Jew is not allowed to, that's not a kosher korban. So you're not able to sacrifice it at the temple. So Bar Kochba brings this to the Beit HaMikdash, and the rabbis see what's happening, but they don't really know what to do. Should we offer it? Should we not offer? We don't want to start a war. They ended up saying, we can't break the halacha. We're not offering this korban. And that was the beginning of the end. That was when the siege started, and it was very terrible. If you read the story, it's devastating. You know, there was no food. People were starving. It's very painful to read what was going on. If you read Eicha in English, it's like, wow. It's really painful what was happening, and it led to the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash. So, of course, On one hand, we know that it needed to happen and it was going to happen in some way, and we're meant to. It's all part of the story. And the third Beit HaMikdash will never, ever be destroyed again. In the prophecies of Yechezkel is written the way that the Beit HaMikdash will be built and it won't be destroyed. But there's it's pretty intense, this story. And the way to rectify this is, what do you think is the way to rectify it? If the sin was through sinat chinam, how can we rectify this sin, so to speak, and bring the Beit HaMikdash? Anybody? So with the opposite, with avat chinam, right? With baseless love. I love you not because I have a reason, and we'll go a little more in depth of what does that mean, but I'm just giving you like a heads up. Just because I love you because there's no reason. I love you because you're a Jew, and that's it, right? I might not get along with you. I might not like how you look. I might get annoyed at your voice, but I love you for no reason. And that's a way that we can rectify the sin of avat chinam, of sinat chinam, and we can connect and have avat chinam and bring the Beit HaMikdash. So I wanted to say, how do we use this time? I was saying that this is already a time that it's more solemn, and we're thinking about it. So it says that our neshama came down into this world, a world of darkness. Why did it come down? In order to be elevated. Again, we're going to hear this concept over and over and over in the Torah. The neshama didn't need to come down. It was perfect up there, right? With the angels and with Hashem. It came down into a body in order to rectify the body, in order to elevate the body. And it says that we don't want, like, why the struggles in this world? Because we don't want bread of shame. We know that anything that we get easy, we didn't work for it. We kind of take it for granted, right? So Hashem says, I don't want you to have bread of shame. So when we work for it, when we work for anything, it says that everyone has something that's really holding them back, right? We all have our struggles, and everybody has their one thing that if that's your biggest struggle and that's your biggest light. The same like the Beit HaMikdash, right? The saddest day has the potential to become the highest day, the day that Mashiach was born. The same with our struggles. And like a person who's addicted to something, through their addiction, they can become closer to God, right? A person who has like something that's really, really hard for us, it's not only a struggle, that is the point of entrance where we can actually become the closest to Hashem. So many times we're like, Hashem, why did you give me this? Or why do I have to struggle with this? Or why do I have to get angry? Or why did you give me this habit? Or why can I get over whatever? There's no why. Hashem gave every single person exactly what they need. It says there's a story that it's not a story, it's like a cute little saying that if we would all get together and there's like a circle of all different packages, right, with all different people's problems, right, we're always like, oh my goodness, I wish I didn't have this problem. I didn't have this problem. There's a problem for, there's a package for Bracha, for Yvette, for Louise, for Evelyn, for Pnina. And if we go and we see everyone's problems, we're going to end up choosing our own package at the end. Like, let me just get my own bag. Because Hashem gave the struggles that we can handle. I have the struggles that Bracha's neshama can handle. And sometimes we're just like, oh, it's too much. I can't take it. And it's like, yes, you can. Because Hashem gave you the struggle in order to reveal your light. Hashem is not a punishing God. On the contrary, it's in order to reveal your own inner light. So when we say, why did you give me this? It's kind of arrogant, why not? It's a human condition. Everybody has something that they're working on. And if we work through that, we really can bring the highest of light. That's why there's so much opposition. When you have to really get something done, there's so much opposition because it's so important. So the Yetzer Hara is kind of working really hard for it not to happen. So that if you make that happen, you'll bring all this with tremendous light. And whatever trait you need to work on, right? And we also have to be very careful with our speech. We shouldn't say like, oh, I'm an angry person or I'm a depressed person. God forbid. We can say, I have a tendency to get angry. I have a tendency to get depressed. Who am I? I am a soul. I am a loving being. I am light. I have a deep, precious neshama. and I have tendencies to whatever our tendencies are. So we have to, in order to change a habit, there's a couple of things that we need to do. One, we need to, first of all, recognize that everyone has it. We're all on the same boat. Number two, we need to say, not to put ourselves down. Nobody ever changed from a place of hate or disgust. Instead of being disgusted, oh, I can't believe that I behave like that or that I am like this. No, like I am, again, coming from a place of grace, from a place of love. I am a beautiful human being. I have a neshama. So first thing, coming from a place of love, only then you can change, and cry to Hashem. Don't be stuck in the well asking for the Wi-Fi and be too comfortable inside the well. Just pray to Hashem, like, Hashem, help me with this. I can't do it alone. Help me. You know, and you know, when in the story of Miriam, when Moshe, the story of Miriam, she put Moshe in the basket, and it says Abatya was trying to reach for Moshe's basket. She reached her, and her arm couldn't reach. All she had to do, she reached her arm, and Hashem made her arm stretch and get the basket. All we need to do is our part. And we do our part, and then Hashem is going to do his part and help us with all of our struggles. And Rabbi Nachman of Breslov writes, I love this concept when I first learned it, that we all our souls they're made of 4 different elements, the 4 elements of the world: fire, air, water, and earth. So we all have those elements inside our neshama. And some of us are more fire, some of us are more earth, air, or water. And what are those traits? So if a person is more earthy, on the negative side, they have a tendency to be lazy, to get depressed, to be sluggish. On the upside, they have a tendency to be they could be very grounded. These are the people that are very structured, very grounded. A fiery person, right? On the downside, arrogance, anger. They get angry really, really fast. On the upside, passionate people, right? The fire, a fire to get things done. Air, on the negative side, it's a very lashon hara, person who's like, you know, just dvarim vatalim, words with no meaning, and it's also arrogance, no substance to their personality. And on the upside, airy people are very spiritual. They can connect to Hashem in a very deep level. And water, on the downside, water is ta'avot, which is pleasures. Like, it's like a hole that can never be filled. Like, a person who has a lot of water is more connected to, God forbid, to like addictions. Never enough. And on the other side, it's kindness, right? A person who's always giving. So we all have these traits inside of us, and we all have it. And I'm sure as I'm speaking, you can think about it. I am more airy. I'm more fiery. We all have this aspect, and we want to be able to tap into the good aspects of this 4 elements, right? And we can really go and we all have this combination, but we can tap and become better and better through using these 4 elements. And when we have pain, the pain can do 1 or 2 things. We can feel it, and it could be a catalyst for change. And I have a lot of respect for, you know, Yvette and the stories that I was listening in Iraqi night last week. I didn't know much about the Iraqi story and resilience and the attitude of gratitude. And it's so true, right? If we have pain, we can feel it, experience it, and then we can change and we can move forward. Or, God forbid, a person can get depressed, and then there's despair. What is despair? There's no room for Hashem, God forbid, right? I'm not talking about clinical depression, right? Of course, a person who needs clinical depression needs to get medication, 100%, right? I'm talking about like a heaviness, right? When we feel despair and my life is not good, you know, God forbid. Once we have pain, it should help us in order to change. I read that lobsters, actually very interesting, as they grow, they shed their skin completely because their bodies become big. They shed their skin and they have to grow like a whole new, whatever that's called, like a shell around their body. And it's painful. And it's very relevant to us, right? We're not the same. I'm not the same person I was 10 years ago. I'm not the same person I was 5 years ago or even a year ago. Growth is not negotiable. We're meant to grow. We're human beings. We need to grow, 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 grow. So sometimes it's painful to grow, right? To like shed things that are not serving us anymore. But the pain should be a catalyst for moving forward, for growth. And the rabbi said, "There's nothing as whole as a broken heart." I love that, right? Like that's when we're letting Hashem in. So the broken heart, again, for change, as a catalyst for change. And it says that pain is really just letting us know that something is not working, right? On a physical level, if my arm is hurting, I look at it, oh, it's red, I could see that, God forbid, I have an infection, and I'll take care of it. On an emotional level, same thing. If I'm hurting, if something is painful, I have to look at it. Something's not working. Maybe I need more Torah in my life. Maybe I'm being too self-centered and I'm not doing enough for other people. And then when we're too much in our minds, it's painful, because then it feels like it's not a fulfilling existence. So pain is just there to let us know that something is not working. So not to despair on the pain, to just let us know that, we can do something about it. So this year, of course, we have lots of obstacles. So we need Hashem even more, right? Now is the time to come even closer to Hashem. And what's stopping us many times from reaching our goals? It's the Yetzer Hara, right? The moment we start thinking about a goal that we want to fulfill, no, who do you think you are? Or how are you going to go? How are you going to get there? Or somebody did that already. All these voices come up. And I love this concept of using the power of imagination, right? Just like the Yetzer Hara has a really good power of imagination to like, blah, 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 blah. Let us know about this and what about that and what's going to happen if about this, to direct our imagination and to think, what's the best outcome possible? Like to really picture it in your mind. It's like all the positive psychology and positive thinking, but really picture in my mind, okay, how am I going to get to my goal? And once we start doing that and we're picturing in our mind, we're silencing the Yetzer Hara, and it becomes more and more of our reality. And that's how we can actually accomplish our goal. And another thing is the power of neshima. Neshima is our breath. Neshama is our neshama, our soul. Neshima is the breath. It's so important to breathe. Instead of venting out, that's when we're angry, we're like venting out, and we're very impatient. Like when we want to change, we want it now. And that's arrogance and impatience. If we want to change anything, like a media, a trait that we're talking about, breathe in, take it in, breathe, and then relax and know that it might take some time. You're going to get there, right? We need to have patience, especially and again, right, in this generation. I wrote here, we have to fall in love with the birurim. What does that mean? We have to fall in love with this process. With this process of birurim is elevating the sparks, of rectifying the word. Fall in love with the process of the obstacles, of the struggles. Because once you're like, okay, this is just how it's going to be. I have one obstacle. I just keep going. Then it becomes easier and easier. This is, again, we don't want bread of shame. We want to work for it. We want to get to Gan Eden and be like, I did it. I worked on my neshama. I exercise, just like we do weights or we do like anything to grow our muscle. We have to like work our neshama, our connection with Hashem, and we can do it like on a daily basis. Now I want to go a little bit onto this whole book in the Chumash is the book of Dvarim. It's speaking about Moshe rebuking. A lot of it is Moshe rebuking the Jewish people, right? Reminding them what they did wrong. So I want to focus a little bit on cherishing criticism, which is like, what? Not our favorite topic. We don't really like criticism, but I want to tell you why is it important and what we can learn from it. So there's a story about a big Rabbi Yitzchak Meir, who lived in the 1800s. And he suffered greatly. 12 out of his 13 children passed away. And he needed, yes, terrible. He ended up raising most of his grandchildren. One of his grandchildren was Yehuda Arya Lev, who's known as the Sfat Emet, who's a brilliant commentary. He became a brilliant commentary on the Talmud. So as a boy, he would often stay up the entire night learning Torah. And he was brilliant. He was learning from his grandfather. So it happened one night that he was learning the whole night. And as he's getting close to the morning, he falls asleep right before Shacharit. So, with his roommate. So he gets to synagogue late. So his grandfather, Rabbi Yitzchak Meir, starts rebuking him, like a Jew has to wake up like a lion, it says in the Shulchan Aruch, to come to synagogue. And what a shame that you didn't, like a Jew has to come early in the morning. And little Arya Lev has all the excuses in the world. He could have said, well, I was learning Torah. He didn't say one thing. And his roommate said, Arya Lev, like, what are you doing? Why didn't you tell your grandfather like that you were learning Torah, And he said, to hear criticism from my saintly grandfather is a once in a lifetime opportunity. There was no way I was going to forfeit that privilege by offering justifications for my own behavior. Like, wow, right? Like, wow. So most of us loathe criticism, right? We are like, oh, somebody criticizes, then our whole body starts like reacting. But the truth, and this quote really touched me. We would rather be ruined by praise than saved by criticism. Wow. I was like, really amazing. Especially I felt connected to this generation that we need the praise and we want to praise our children. I was like, wow. And I want to read you another quote by Winston Churchill. He said, criticism may not be agreeable, but it is necessary. It fulfills the same function as pain in the human body. It calls attention to an unhealthy state of things. When you have a solid core, you can listen gracefully to criticism. Again, going back to when we know our worth, when we know, okay, I have a neshama, I'm a soul, I'm literally a human, a godly being inside of me, then criticism doesn't break you or shake you. Okay, you might get annoyed or it's not fun, but it doesn't shake your core. Like if you know your worth, somebody comes and tells you something and it's like, okay, I'll take it. I can learn something from it. I can grow. We all have blind spots. And that's what Moshe was doing with the Jewish people. He wanted to elevate them, right? If we can use our spouses' contrasting personalities, we can really grow. If we don't feel like, defensive, we can really use it to grow because we don't see all of our faults, right? And Hashem made it like that our partners should mirror also our flaws in order to grow. Like this example of if a customer walks into a Louis Vuitton store, right? And the customer is like, I don't really like that purse. The salesperson is not going to be offended. It's going to be like, okay, fine. Like he knows what the purse is worth and he knows that it's the best quality. So he's like, okay, fine, go look for another one. Like we are Louis Vuitton, right? What about if the customer walks into that and, it's like walking in the market and he looks at this purse and he starts, I don't know if this purse is so good. The salesman's going to be like, well, it's going to try to justify it. It's made of leather and it has this and because he's not so sure of his product. So he's trying to like make it better. So when we're not so sure of ourselves, that's when criticism is really hurting us, right? But if we have a solid core, and how do we do that? By knowing, first of all, we're godly beings. Okay, you might know more than me in this area. I have a PhD. You might know more Torah. You know more science. Whatever it is, at the end, we all have the same godly soul. And okay, now I can take and we can learn from each other. Another quote on criticism. Criticism, like rain, should be gentle enough to nourish a person's growth without destroying its roots. If you don't believe that you have any firm roots, all criticism will kill you. So this made me think, because we always hear how important it is. And I heard like different shiurim classes about the importance of letting our kids know that they're coming from somewhere. When kids know the roots and, like tell them the story, how, their grandparents and where do they come? They have solid roots. they're much more, they're proud of themselves and less likely to like fall with like the externalities of the world. And if somebody criticizes them, they're like, well, but I know who I am at my core. So it's much harder to move a person from that. And I remember when I was first learning in Machon Chana, the first yeshiva I went when I was 18, it's a Chabad yeshiva. So they have a concept over there of Farbrengen. Farbrengen, it's a Yiddish word for like people getting together and singing and celebrating. And at the same time, these Hasidim, these people, they would use this opportunity, as they're saying L'chaim, and their hearts are open, to kind of rebuke each other, but from love. Like, hey, you know, you, Jacob, you know, I saw that you were not davening so good. Or, you know, they would use this opportunity as a camaraderie to really give criticism from a good place. And the parable that I learned at that moment that stayed with me is that when we rebuke somebody, it's like giving an injection. What do you have to do first before you give a vaccine or an injection? You need to sterilize the area, right? You need to make sure that the area is clean. So same, if I'm gonna say some words to my kid, spouse, a friend, first of all, sterilize myself, like check in yourself, like where am I coming from? Like, why am I doing it? Do I just wanna make myself sound smarter? Am I trying to put this person down and make myself feel better? Or am I really saying it because I want them to change? So first of all, really we have to see where are we coming from in order for it to be received in a right way. So Moshe knew that, right? Timing is everything. And the way that we portray and our intention in lifting up another person, right? So we must recognize our immutable self-worth. I am wholesome, Hashem loves me, and at the same time to have the humility to know that I'm not there yet and there's always room to grow. So you see, there's always this dichotomy. Sad day, the day that Mashiach will be born. I'm a wholesome, loving person. I'm not there yet. This is the word, like, you know, like where the lowest gets to the highest. Yerida, going down in order to go up. And this takes us to the concept I told you before of love. Avat chinam, love for no reason. So Rabbi Akiva said, "Ve'ahavta l're'echa kamocha, ze klal gadol b'Torah." He said, love your fellow Jew as yourself. This is the entire Torah. The rest is commentary. Hillel said, this is the entire Torah. How can that be? I want to just go a little bit deeper into what does this mean. Obviously, loving another Jew is extremely important. But how can these rabbis come and say, this is the entire Torah? There's another 612 mitzvot. So I want to dig a little bit deeper into what does this mean when they say, this is the entire Torah. How are we able to love another Jew? How can the Torah commands us to love another Jew like ourselves and to love them as much as ourselves? How is that even possible? The only way that that's possible, that we can love another as ourselves, is if we prioritize the soul, the neshama. If we make the neshama number one, then, okay, I'm connecting to you on that level. Of course I can love you on that level because me and you were the same. If I'm putting the body as number one, and I'm getting annoyed by you, by your smell, by the way you look, by your voice, you know, we have all this, the animal soul gets distracted by all the things that pushes away. We have different opinions, but if we make the soul the main thing, then of course we can connect to every single Jew. And that's why it says that this is the entire Torah, because the entire Torah is making the soul the priority. If we make the soul the priority, no problem. Of course I can keep the mitzvot. Okay, so it's a little inconvenient, but of course I can do it because the neshama becomes the number one. So I love when I learned this concept again. Ve'ahavta l're'echa kamocha just means simple, making your neshama number one. Then you can connect to every single being. And also, if another way that we can love another Jew unconditionally is, you know, we know that Hashem loves every Jew unconditionally. So, and we love Hashem. So if we love Hashem, I love Hashem, I have to love what Hashem loves, right? So Hashem loves his children. I love Hashem. Therefore, I love all of his creations, right? Like when we're married, right? I end up like, okay, I might not like it at the beginning, but I end up really, if he makes my spouse happy, I end up, okay, I'm loving what he loves because he makes my spouse happy. You know, there was a story of a couple, this like old couple, and they went to the doctor, and you know, her foot, like the lady's foot was hurting. So the doctor, the husband says, "Doctor, my foot hurts us." He felt his wife's pain so deeply. He felt identified that he said, "My foot hurts us." Like, God willing, we should all get to that level. But really, if we love another one like deeply, we know what brings them pain brings us pain. What brings them joy brings us joy. So if we connect to Hashem, we're gonna love all of Hashem's creations. And another story is about seeing the good. There was a group of people, and they were walking, and they saw this carcass on the floor, and it's like, oh, so one person's like, oh, it's so smelly, it's so disgusting. They walked the other way. So this one simple Jew said, oh, look at it, its teeth are so white. He found the one redeemable quality in this carcass. The teeth were white. You know, sometimes we have to like find the one little thing in order to see the good in somebody. Or the Berdichev, the rabbi of Berdichev, he was very famous for having tremendous love for every single Jew. So one time there was this Jew who was praying, and at the same time that he was praying, he was greasing the wheel of his wagon, right, in the 1800s. So somebody could go through and be like, chutzpah, you know, like you're praying to Hashem, and while you're praying to Hashem, you're engaged in such a lowly activity at greasing your wagon. But the rabbi of Berdichev looked and he said, Hashem, look at your Jewish people, look at your nation. Even while greasing their wagon wheel, they're praying to you, right? It's all it's all a matter of perspective. How do we look at it? So I want to end with this, that, well, two more things, actually. So one is, if I love myself as I am, right, I might not push myself. So on the other hand, if I don't accept myself, I'm not loving myself. So again, how do we change? Loving myself, okay, and at the same time, pushing myself. And the Rebbe of Lubavitch was really the epitome of this. Thousands of people would go online and would visit the Rebbe. And you could see in the videos and anecdotes that, you know, that people share with me, the Rebbe would look at every single Jew with such loving eyes. Unconditional love, not for their potential, for who they were in that moment. Not like, oh, I'm loving that one day he'll become a doctor. I'm loving who this Jew is right now. And this is how we have to look at every single Jew and at our kids. I love you for who you are right now, with all the things that you have. At the same time, the Rebbe would demand tons from people. Tons. Somebody would come and be like, oh, I built a synagogue. Great. Build another one. I wrote a book. Great. What's next? So I love that dichotomy. And this whole shiur is, you know, it's this dichotomy. Lowest, the lowest bringing to the highest, the saddest day bringing us Mashiach, accepting ourselves as we are, at the same time pushing ourselves. We live in a world of duality. And I want to just end with remembering what the Rambam says, that literally we should see the world as standing, you know, as Rosh Hashanah is coming, you know, after this, that the world is standing in a balance, and that every single act that we do can change the world. Every little thing that we do, it literally can change the world. You know, it's not just, these are not just quotes. Sometimes we say them and they sound cheesy, or like we become so accustomed to them, right? That we're like, oh yeah, like think good and it'll be good, or everything you do affects, but they really are true. If we take the time and we think about it, we can all do one more act we really don't know that can tip the scale and bring Mashiach now. So I give us all a bracha that we should practice more avat chinam, baseless love for no reason in whatever area. Also to have the strength to work on that one trait that's holding us back, because that one trait is going to bring the most tremendous light. And to remind ourselves that change comes patience, breathing, accepting, like loving ourselves. Only through loving we can actually change something, and praying, ask Hashem for help. And